Welcome back to Probability and Statistics. In this section, we want to talk about how to critique a published study. Alright, but what I'm really trying to talk about here in this short video is talk about bias. Okay, the word bias, as you know, is favoring of a certain outcome in a study. Okay, this is something we are always trying to avoid. We're trying to avoid being biased. In the previous video, we talked about the different types of sampling technique, the simple random sampling. Okay, why random? Because we're trying to avoid bias. Sampling bias occurs when the sample chosen does not accurately represent the population being studied. Okay, to avoid sampling bias, we can just make the samples larger. Alright, so that's called a sampling bias. Maybe the sample was too small. Okay, it does not really answer the question that you you're trying to collect the data for. Alright, dropouts are participants who begin a study but fail to complete it. Alright, processing error are errors that occur simply from the data being processed, such as different typos when the data are being entered. Okay, that can happen. When processing error occurs, that can actually lead to bias. Non-adherents are participants who remain in the study until the end, but straight from the direction they were given. Alright, so using the using the Chantix, the reduce the urge to smoke example. Maybe in the study they say, okay, by taking the Chantix you will reduce your urge to smoke, so that means you will smoke half a pack a day. But somebody's still in the study, but they end up smoking a pack a day. Okay, they stray away from the direction they were given. Researcher bias occurs when a researcher trying to influence the results of a study. Okay, it's called a researcher's bias. Okay, and this is as crooked as it can be. Alright, so if somebody is doing the research and they want to influence the result of a study, okay, they can do a lot of things, okay, with the data to make the data appear to be favoring one part over the other. That's called a researcher's bias. Now, hopefully, researchers that collecting data, okay, is not going to do that in the real world. And a lot of times, what's happening lately is there are different institutions collecting data for many different things. Okay, social issues, medical issues. What's happening is the data that they come out is being manipulated. Okay, different ways of talking about that particular number. Okay, and people can do that. Okay, the number does not lie. It's the people that talk about those numbers has an agenda. So they tend to trying to persuade your view. Okay, when your view go towards them. Alright, response bias occurs when the research behavior causes a participant to alter his or her response when a participant gives an inaccurate response. Okay, such as like making up a false response. Alright, so response bias occurs is when a researcher's behavior. Okay. Participation bias occurs when there is a problem with either the participation or lack thereof of those chosen in the study. Okay, so lack of participation can be a participation bias. Alright, self-selected sample, okay, is also a type of participation bias. Just like this thing called the ratemyprofessor.com. I don't know if y'all ever used this website before. This thing was kind of popular back in the mid 2000. right before Facebook really got big. So I went to the ratemyprofessor.com and look up my name, and the student who participates in this online survey, okay, you can read up on it. All right, this is a self-selected because the student want to write something about Mr. Chan, so they do the survey. So that is called the participation bias. Okay, to choose for themselves to do it. All right. Now, when we do an online survey, okay, when we do a survey for this class toward the end of the semester, that is actually, that is actually not a self-selected, because the school, the researcher from our institution actually select, this class to survey the students. Okay, that's a different types of. That's not a type of bias. All right, non-response bias occur when there is lack of participation in a self-selected sample from certain segment of population. When a person refuses to participate in the survey, or there is a respondent omit questions when answering a survey. Okay, so maybe like when there's 10 questions on the survey, you choose not to answer one. Okay, non-response bias. Okay, that'll be an example of. All right, the whole point is, in statistics, we are trying not to be biased. Okay, we're trying to be as neutral as we can be when we collecting data, and when we group them into tables and chart. We try not to influence or trying to persuade, okay, the reader. Now, when we analyze the data, okay, later on in the semester we'll talk about analyzing data. When we analyze data, that is where that's where people can try to persuade you, okay, to their point of view. Okay, and that can get dangerous from time to time. But as far as us concerned, okay, our job is to collect data, okay, group them into tables, charts, whatever, and then we do analysis on it. Now, what other people use the data for, okay, that's really out of our hand. Okay, how they gonna manipulate our data is really out of our hand. Alright, so this is a short video. I just want to talk a little bit about bias, and that would be it for this section. Thank you for watching.